had a kid, his name was Taekwon, and he was, y'all know it, because if you've been a teacher, you've had a Taekwon. And I'll paint a picture without giving a descriptor. Taekwon had a mom who lost all her kids, and the grandma, him and his sister were the only ones that were still like young. And the grandma said, well, I'll take the sister, but I would never take Taekwon. So, you know, and then you walk around with that knowledge. And so I had this kid, and of course I loved him because those kind of kids you love, right? And he was getting worse and worse and worse. And I walked into the resource room, and he had completely decimated the room. And typically if I go in, he would see me, acknowledge me, slow down, you know, whatever. And this time he was just a tornado and just would not stop. And he saw me and he cussed at me, and that was like, you don't cuss at Miss Battle, like, you know. And so I let him sort of cycle down, and I was like, you know, I love you, and we have this like relationship, and you crossed my line, and that hurt me. And he was like, well, and he's still like going, and I said, it's fine. But what I'm gonna have to do is, I'm just gonna have to remove you from my personal community. And he was like, I don't even know what that means. And I was like, I'm just not gonna see you anymore. I just don't see you. And he was like, and I was nervous, because I was like, this could go a lot of different ways. And he looked at me, and then I stopped looking at him. And I spent the next few days telling staff, you know, I'm the assistant principal, but I don't see him. And I know this is strange, but can we just trust the process? I feel like this is the season of trusting the process, right? And so he went crazy in the lunchroom, and I looked at a couple of teachers, and they went and they dealt with him, and I wouldn't look at him. His teacher would bring him in when he was being bad, and I would talk to the teacher about making sure she was okay. I didn't acknowledge him, and he would be like, I know you can see me, like, and it was hard, but I felt like this was the right direction, and it was for about 2.5 weeks. Which is a really long time for a third grader. He was just a little tiny little chocolate drop, little as can be. And I had told him in the moment when I was telling him I was gonna take him out of my community, I will know when you are the person who deserves to do this with me. I will see it in you. And he slowly started slowing down, getting it together. He still had rough days. I wasn't expecting perfection, but it got to the point where I was like, boom, and I walked in, and I was like, hey, Taekwon, how's your day going? And he lit up, and he was excited. And then a couple weeks later, because you don't know with kids, they're just happy to have you around. This new kid came, and he was in the lunchroom, and he was cussing and fussing, and I walked over, and Taekwon turned and said, stop. She will ignore you, and it is the worst feeling in the whole world. And I was like, it worked. And the thing is, you can't force a kid to want to be a part of a community, to be a part of a culture of a school when they don't understand the value. When kids are rough and tough, and we run behind them, and we want to love on them and give them everything that we know that they're missing. But if you've never had it, if you don't know what normal feels like, it's abnormal. And so you first have to let them see the void. And then when you fill it back in, it starts to change who they are and how they handle themselves. 1.5 years later, I'm just driving on the street, minding my business, probably listening to music that wasn't assistant principal-y. And the city bus in front of me, this is DC, Southeast DC, everything is happening. This bus like shudders, and so I stop. He comes flying, I hadn't seen him in 1.5 years. He comes flying off the bus and runs to my car and was like, Miss Battle, Miss Battle. He was trying to tell me like his whole life story in the road, and it's just because you just have to do whatever you have to do to make sure that it is of value. And it's not gonna look like how it looks to me, to Nikki, to Reed, to Fred, to anybody. But as soon as you start to figure out how you get a kid or an adult to value the community that you're trying to build and bring them into, then they become an active, functioning part of that community.